see. This works. All right. So, Nandita, first of all, I want to emphatically and loudly acknowledge your incredible resilience and strength, and your journey is nothing short of inspiration. I'm sure you've heard this from a lot of people and a lot of times. But the work you've done to turn your lived experience into advocacy is deeply inspiring, especially for organization like ours that's trying to raise awareness on AMR. And so I'm really excited to hear your thoughts and insights on various aspects of AMR, especially as we are speaking during the World AMR Awareness Week 2024. So, Nandita, you've been through such a challenging journey as a two-time TB survivor at a very young age, during which you also lost your hearing and had to deal with a whole host of physical and mental challenges. And I know that drug resistance was a significant part of your journey. So could you share how dealing with drug resistance and TB shaped your treatment journey? What challenges did you face in getting the right medications, right care, and whether the challenges that you faced were unique to India? And in your advocacy work, in your discussion on AMR with other people in the world, do you see any similarities or dissimilarities? And I think I would also be very interested to hear what helped you in getting through this really daunting journey. So over to you, Nandita.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Sarah, for having me and for doing this very important conversation on this topic. AMR, as we know, is antimicrobial resistance. It is a growing public health threat. It has been classified amongst the top 20 threats, if I'm not wrong, by the World Health Organization. And it's of course, numbers like that can possibly convey that, oh, it's a looming threat. But
Yeah.
when you see actually about what people have to go through when they have to deal with a very challenging situation like this, the fact is that AMR manifests in a way, and it's a scary thing, that your existing antibiotics that we have actually stop responding. So the idea here is that you are actually taking a medication and you don't know whether it will actually cure you or it won't cure you. And if it
Right.
doesn't cure you, what are the other options in front of you? So,
Right.
that can be a scary proposition for anyone to deal with. So I personally, I had to deal with TB twice in my life. I had it at a very young age. I had it at the age of 17, and when I had just started college, I had started my first year of university when I was told that I had contracted intestinal TB, a TB that is in the colon region of your large intestine. And I took treatment at that time for about 15 months, because intestinal TB, I was told, is a little more difficult to treat compared to a lung TB or compared to any other form of TB. So I had to
Right.
take a slightly longer duration of medication. This
Mhm.
was in 2007. I took,
Right.
it was a normal sensitive TB that I had. And then after that, I was fully cured of the disease. I took the treatment in my first year, and through my second year of university, my undergraduation studies. Of course, the medicines came with its range of side effects that you had, that normal antibiotics, strong antibiotics that you take have.
Right.
And then I was, your TB medications have side effects such as nausea, vomiting. TB itself manifests in ways such as weight loss, or you have fever. So all
Right.
of that, dealing in hindsight, I think dealing those as a 17, 18-year-old girl, I think
Mhm.
that was a challenging thing at that point. You're a very young girl who is who's starting to become fairly independent in life, who, she's
Right.
starting college. You're starting to feel that breath of independence when you suddenly see this happening. So I was cured of the disease completely. And then I moved on. I did my postgraduate studies in New Delhi. at the Indian Institute of Mass Communication. I had moved from Mumbai to New Delhi for my postgraduate studies. And then after that, again in 2013, I was told that the TB has resurfaced again. And this happened very suddenly. I remember that I started getting some kind of a stomach pain. So intestinal TB usually manifests as you have stomach pain, or you have some kind of very uneasy feeling. So
Right.
I didn't have any of that, and then suddenly in 2013 I started getting that stomach pain, and somewhere I was wondering what is going on. This doesn't seem, something doesn't seem right here. So
Right.
I went, and then I was told that okay, uh, the doctors told me that, I think the same doctor who treated me the first time in Mumbai, I went to
Mhm.
her again, and she said that yeah, your TB has come back, and it was obviously a huge shock for me at that time. I was 23 years old. I was a few months short of turning 24,
Mhm.
and I was told that the TB has resurfaced again. It was obviously, I was very shocked as to how did this happen, how, the where's the house, the whys. I didn't have much answers to it. I was
Right.
told that okay, you start your medication. We will see how your condition progresses. Otherwise, you will need to undergo a surgery. Now, the medication that I was put on, the first line medication, it was not responding very well, and I was told that eventually that you will have to undergo a surgery to essentially remove that infected portion of the intestine altogether. And
Mhm.
in the portion that was infected with the TB bacteria, I was told that it's visible that it's not showing any sign of improvement. So we will
Mhm.
have to remove the infected portion of the intestine with the surgery. Now, ideal in an ideal scenario, I should have ideally been done with the treatment and with this in about, I was told, you undergo the surgery, do be under bed rest for 2 months, and then you continue your medication, and then you can be back to normal life. But
Right.
that obviously didn't happen. Unfortunately, I had to undergo 6 surgeries after that in my abdomen, and my condition drastically deteriorated after that. I was in the hospital for 90 days, for 3 months, and they completely, the condition my condition deteriorated, and it was just not coming under control with whatever was being tried at that point of time. Then I had to undergo a couple of emergency surgeries, including a surgery that is called as ileostomy, where which is considered to be a surgery that is done in when your condition is really serious, and basically it's a life-saving surgery from what I was told.
Mhm.
It used to be where you put a pouch, and you pass your stools through, not through your anal, but
Mhm.
through your stomach area. So it is a slightly complicated surgery, but I was told that you'll have to get this done for some time so that your condition comes under control. Around that time, they I was starting to get administered with Kanamycin injections
Mhm.
as part of my treatment. Now
Mhm.
this is a high grade injection. It's a second line treatment injection that is given.
Right.
Kanamycin injections, I was given for 90 days.
Mhm.
And at the end, about 1 week after I completed the course of Kanamycin injections, about 90 to 100 days, every day you are injected in the butt at that time. And
Mhm.
about 90 or 100 days, I was given the injection. And 1 week after I had completed the course of Kanamycin, I had suddenly lost my hearing completely. So
Mhm.
I woke up from one afternoon nap. I was at my home. It was just about a month after I was discharged after a very long period of hospitalization that I had to undergo. And I was at home. It was 2 days after my 24th birthday. It was exactly around this time in November in 2013, when exactly around this period. So it was I had gone off to sleep. It was a 15-minute nap that I took, and I woke up to pin drop silence, and I realized that I could not hear anything. No one would have even thought in their wildest dreams that it could be a complete loss of hearing.
Right.
We were thinking that, that we were under the impression that these are possibly part of your, you're dealing with a very grave situation. This could be some one-off side effect that is just coming, or something of that sort, because we were not even informed beforehand that the kanamycin injections that were given could have such a serious side effect. So we were not informed about the hearing loss thing. If not me, even my parents were not informed either. So none of us knew about it. And then we went back, and the doctor said that you have lost your hearing, and it's because of kanamycin injections. And it was overnight. Deafness had set in, and
Oh,
it was obviously very shocking at that time, and it took a lot to come out of that situation, because you're dealing with a disease, already a big disease, and then you're also facing the prospect of a lifelong disability in front of you,
yeah.
which is which comes with its own set of challenges in
Absolutely.
terms of integrating with the mainstream society, in terms of gaining independence, in terms of what your future will look like ahead. There are so many questions that you have to deal with at the end of the day. So all of that, so it was really a sort of what you call as a double whammy. That you're dealing with one thing, and you're suddenly put into the situation that you have to start dealing with another
Right.
completely different problem altogether.
Right.
So the deafness really set in out of nowhere, and it is because of this. Kanamycin is supposed to be, from what I understand, it is supposed to be an effective drug, but
Right.
it is an effective drug, no doubt. But it is also a very old drug. It is also administered. It is also administered intravenously as an injection,
Right.
because there are no oral options available as well at back then. Now we
Mm,
do have that, where we do have options such as bedaquiline, delamanid, which are used for treating multi-drug resistant TB. So
mhm.
kanamycin is one of those really older class of medications that still existed, which to me I think TB, the medication, the line of medication itself as a whole, to me shows that there was really a very long pause in terms of advancing science and research when it comes to these neglected diseases.
Yeah. Right.
Because these diseases are something that mainly the lower and middle income countries have it. And I think there was this whole lull that, okay, the global north, the developed countries,
Mm,
I think they possibly overcame TB at some phase, and then they thought that it's done.
yeah.
That it's not there anymore, or
Right.
it's no more a serious problem. But
Right.
it's that a large part of the world, there are still several countries who are still dealing with it. And
Correct.
a big lull, I guess, in terms of research and development, which is where
Mm,
we had some of these older, very hard to administer and very toxic antibiotics still existing,
mm,
uh, for the lack of or for the lack of better alternatives, I think.
mm. Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
or even though the antibiotics themselves have been effective, no doubt, but the fact that there was very little research happening on what are the better and more effective alternatives that could possibly be less toxic,
Right.
would have lesser side effects, would be more comfortable for the patient to take as well. And
Right.
I think all of that. So I think
Mm,
AMR is something. like if we put it from what I see, AMR as a whole, the what we see in TB is something that even when I look at it, when I've been working in the larger AMR space as well, I
Right.
think it is something that transcends across a lot of these diseases, whether it is malaria, whether it is some of the viruses. We also heard of resistance problems coming up during COVID as well, if I'm not wrong.
Right.
At the time of COVID as well, there was a lot of discussion around resistance coming up, certain medicines
Yeah,
developing resistance because there was a lot of mass administration of some of these antibiotics.
that's right.
So, so I think there the AMR as a whole, it boils down to I think the fact that there needs to be more careful assessment of delivering antibiotics, of the dosage, of also
Yeah,
diagnosing the problem correctly so that you also give the right line of antibiotics,
right.
and also in terms of the thin line between use and misuse, and
That's right.
also overuse.
Right.
So
Right.
I think this trail, I think I see in TB, yes, but
Mm.
also in several other diseases. And I think
Yeah.
AMR is exactly, TB also happens to be a very big part of AMR, and a
Right.
lot of other diseases are there.
Yeah.
Uh, and I think it's important that people are now talking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I mean, I mean, thank you for sharing such,
You know,
sobering and
and
because a lot of times we forget that, behind those numbers that we use in public awareness are real people, who've dealt with this um, drug resistant infections head on. And many, perhaps survive and some unfortunately don't. So I think particularly for a young person, hearing your story is bound to find it incredibly inspiring and empowering. So thank you really for for sharing your story, not just with us, but you've been doing it for so many years now. So you know it's I mean, you touched upon a very important point around patient and provider relationship, especially when it comes to drug resistant infections with which you're battling for a very long period of time. So how can healthcare professionals be better sensitized about the problem of AMR? I mean, how do you see uh, this being done in our country? How are we addressing the problem of drug resistance in our country? I mean, since the time you were diagnosed to now, I mean, what should care for drug resistant infection patients look like, according to you?
See, firstly, I think for drug-resistant infections, one big thing is that the number of medications that are administered goes up significantly for them. So
Right.
there is, unlike say any disease at its at a sensitive stage where you are only administering the first line of medications, it will be far easier for the person to tolerate as well, unlike
Mm.
the unlike when you get into a more resistant phase of the infection, where not
Right.
just the number of medications, even the strength of the medication even goes up significantly. And hence, if you're also having to deal with stronger medications, they also have as many side effects as well.
Right.
The side effects can get a little bit more difficult to deal with. So
Right.
if I say, even in if I say, for example, there are a lot of medicines I know in TB
Mm-hmm.
are also medicines that are used across several infections as well.
Right.
And
Mm-hmm.
because several resistant infections, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
several serious resistant infections,
Right.
they are used as a sort of a last resort medication.
Right.
They are often used. So many of these, for example, in your first line of medication, if you have nausea, if you have your simple a far more tolerable side effect, let's say nausea, vomiting, uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and you can possibly bring that under control. In resistant infections, the side effects go up significantly.
Right.
If it is something very serious, it can be something like complete loss of hearing, If
Mm.
it is elsewhere, people, there are problems I know people face with, say, discoloration of the skin.
Right.
Peripheral neuropathy is again a very common problem, where your skin and your legs start getting very numb because of the medications. Discoloration of the skin, problems with other organs such as, say, liver or kidney. These can get affected immediately, and they also need, for example, parallel supervision of these issues as well, along with being monitored for whether you're getting cured of the main disease. You also need some of these parallel monitoring for, okay, is your kidney functioning well, is your liver functioning well, is your body able to tolerate some of these stronger high grade medications. So I
Mhm.
think that is definitely, that is an issue, I think, where from what I see, it is not where you do, it's not just about one track approach of, say, okay, I'm only dealing with the disease. You have
Right.
a number of other sort of side factors that you have, that a doctor also needs to monitor,
That's right.
in so that it is very important, as we know, that in it is very important that there is adherence to the treatment. Eh,
Right.
but
Right.
from the patient's end, it has to be very important that a person, not just the person who's dealing with the disease, it could be the person's provider, they are provided with fair amount of information on what is, what are the potential, what are the potential side effects, or
Right.
I am aware that it can get a little difficult for doctors to, say, it may not be very easy. Now, for example, I realize that no
Mm.
doctor would have been very easy comfortable with telling me straight away that, okay, you're taking a medication that could lose your hearing. I
Yeah.
understand that,
Right.
that
Right.
it's not possible, because it could also have a very disincentivizing effect, where the fear would be that I may not take the medication at all. But
Absolutely.
so I think that but I also realize that there is also, if not for me,
Mm.
at least a line of communication should be opened with my
Caregiver.
caregiver. If it is
Absolutely.
not, if it's not for me, which I completely understand, if it's not for the person who's dealing, where the
Mm.
fear is that, okay, it could have a negative impact on them, a
Mhm.
parallel line of communication should at least be opened with the provider, with the caregiver, with, it could be the guardian, it could be the parents, where
Yeah.
at least they are kept in the loop of what is going on. So I think that kind of a very thin line is there. That providers, I feel, healthcare providers need to be, significantly aware of. It, of course, there is that lingering concern about whether, how much do I disclose to the person. uh,
Mm.
but but there has to be also that trust that, okay, uh, uh, the person on the other end also ultimately wants to get cured of the disease.
Exactly. Right.
So I think that, and also the fact that there is, if not for the person, at least another person should be kept aware of what is going on. So
That's right.
I was told, for example, after, these were not something that, when I was getting treated, I never knew about these things
Mm.
unless I
Mm.
started venturing into healthcare advocacy
Right.
and healthcare research. And then I started meeting a lot of people at a lot of conferences and a lot of places, or when I started talking to a lot of scientists, researchers, public health professionals, and they were the ones who actually told me on this, that for example, that any kind of hearing loss, like for example the one that I went through, it is something that can be actually averted, where
Right.
have to be constantly monitored for tinnitus, that is, say,
Mm.
ringing of the ears. And
Right.
if there is a ringing of the ears,
Mm.
immediately you are supposed to inform to the doctor that I'm facing ringing of the ears, And I saw this with other patients who are actually told, the doctors had told them that, that you're having ringing of the ears, you inform us, we will do something. You may not be immediately telling the person, okay, you will lose your hearing. I mean, that's a very
Mm.
extreme scenario.
Yes,
But to
of
even
course.
say, even say that if you're facing these side effects, if you're facing ringing of the ears, you let us know, we will have to change your medications. So
Mm.
I think that kind of a nuanced conversation between the doctor and the patient is very essential. I feel that is there one. Definitely a lot of an aspect in AMR dials down to actually diagnosing the
Mm.
disease correctly,
Right.
and for which we need accurate and we need good diagnostic tools.
Mm.
That a lot of diseases, including TB, also, I think we are definitely seeing progress now, but
Yeah.
diagnostic tools that are being used in many places are still very old.
Mm.
They are at the stage of the sputum microscopy, where your saliva sample is sort of tested for the disease. And
Mm.
whereas we now have much better diagnostic tools in terms of gene expert. uh, I saw we saw all of this conversation actually go on during COVID.
Right. Right.
Where I see where there was the conversation when it came to diagnostics about how do you provide diagnostic at the door of the patient. At the patient should be able to diagnose COVID at home himself or herself.
Mm. Mm.
That was the aim and scale at which people were thinking when it came to a disease like COVID.
Yeah.
From what we call as point
Right.
of care diagnosis,
Right.
where you could actually diagnose COVID at home. And COVID
Mm.
is infectious disease like every other infectious disease, but where we could see that kind of scaled up thinking in COVID. We
Mm.
need to get that for other diseases now. Other diseases need that same kind of big thinking approach, that even for TB, or even for a couple of other diseases, you still have to go out and you have to get yourself tested. It's a long
Right.
process to get tested.
Mm.
uh, whereas in a matter of just a year or two in COVID, we saw uh, uh, rapid strides
Mm.
in terms of point of care diagnosis happening. So I
Yeah.
think I think diagnosis is very important, and it's very critically linked to AMR, because unless you don't diagnose the disease correctly, you don't
Mm.
know what is the kind of medication you have to
Right.
administer. And especially, I know in if I talk about TB, which I have seen, it's a common thread across a lot of other diseases as well. The correct combination of medicines need to be administered.
Right.
I
Right.
think that is always there, that you have to administer the correct combination of medications. Otherwise, you will end up getting resistant to something. So I
Right.
think that really depends on the fact that you have to get the diagnosis quickly and correctly in the first place.
Right.
So
Right.
I think some of these big systems sort of thinking approach that we saw in
Mm.
COVID, it's important that we get those lessons now to some of these other AMR
Yeah. Right.
ecosystems.
You touched on two really important points, and I think one is definitely doctor-patient caregiver communication, which I think is I think is lacking in almost all spheres of health and disease. And I think particularly you need that a lot more in MDR TB, or in drug resistant infections, because there's so little known. There's so little that we understand, or that so I think that's a really really important point. And also about scaling up innovations like the point of care diagnostics. And you're absolutely right. I mean, during COVID, suddenly we had kits that we could use to quickly detect at home, detect COVID. And there was, why? So while there was technology, why is this technology not deployed for other diseases and other infections? I think that's a very important question to ask. And now there are, I think, a lot of point of care diagnostics for detecting resistance, and with very good sensitivity and specificity. But again,
Mm.
the question is scale up, like you mentioned. Why are we not able to
Yeah.
scale them up? Why? What's been a barrier there? Yeah.
COVID, that a lot of because COVID was, I believe, at that point, everybody was trying to understand what the disease was. A lot of the existing systems that were used to tackle other infections were repurposed for COVID as
Oh,
well.
absolutely right.
But
Yeah.
and we saw that happening. But
Right.
now it's important that the lessons from dealing with the pandemic has to be now taken back and actually put to scale and put to use in dealing with some of these other diseases what we see as endemic diseases.
Very true. I mean, I think that those are really important, I think, points. And I think, speaking of advocacy, you spoke about advocacy, and I can't I have to mention the advocacy you did against Johnson and Johnson's secondary patent for the pediatric TB drug, Bedaquiline, that you also mentioned earlier. And it set a very powerful precedent for others. And I guess it's very shocking that, given so many millions of children and adolescents develop TB annually, pharmaceutical companies trying to capitalize on these health challenges. So tell us a bit about your about this case. How do you think it contributes again to addressing the problem of drug resistance, particularly, I think, in ensuring that affordable and effective antibiotics are available to those who need them. Because I think a myth is that antibiotics are bad, but we still need antibiotics. Those who get infections have to be treated with the right antibiotics. So please tell us a bit about your experience with this case, and just the larger advocacy around making drugs more accessible.
So, Bedaquiline is a drug that is manufactured and produced by Johnson and Johnson, the American pharmaceutical giant Johnson and Johnson. It was the first, to their credit, I will say definitely that it was the first medication against TB after 40 odd years, 40 or 50 odd years. So
Mm,
definitely to their credit that they and they also had significant public funding from the US government to sort of scale up the fast track
mm,
the approvals for bedaquiline and also see that the trials are done and to see that to check whether the medicine is effective or not. So
right.
this drug was the first drug in nearly 40 years, and it rightly excited a lot of a lot of people in the public health space. I believe that
Mm,
that a the existing line, if you see, of antibiotics in TB, for example, like I said, the second line or the third line antibiotics, they are
mhm.
nothing less if they are nothing less than undergoing a chemotherapy treatment.
Right.
That is how it is. In fact, if you see in some of the WHO documents, they actually mention the word chemotherapy as one of them because that's the scale,
Mm,
the kind of difficulty and the kind of number of medications that you have to take.
right.
You are taking up to almost 12 or 13 medications
Mhm,
at some point, and the treatment duration is nearly for 2 years, 3 years.
mhm,
It can go that long, and coupled with that, the existing line of antibiotics have a lot of side effects, like I said, including though it's a long path to cure, but the path itself is riddled with a lot of difficulties.
mhm,
So it is very difficult for anyone to actually uh, patience and hold on to yourself till you reach the finish line because you have a range of side effects, like I said. It could be discoloration of the skin, it could be peripheral neuropathy, things
mm,
like that. So this is the general background that was
yeah.
there. including, like I said, something like a kanamycin, which causes problems with the kidney,
Mm-hmm.
or in extreme cases, it leads to a loss of hearing,
Mm-hmm.
complete loss of hearing. So
Mm-hmm.
bedaquiline A, first of all, it was seen as a sort of a medicine with lesser side effect.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, no antibiotic, unfortunately, comes with zero side effects. That is not there. Bedaquiline was a medicine that was seen with a lesser side effects. A,
Mm-hmm.
it was seen as a replacement to kanamycin, which had triggered my loss of hearing in the first place. And it is also a key medicine in cutting down the treatment duration from 2 years to today. You can complete an MDR TB treatment in 1 year, 1 year's time. So
Mm-hmm.
and now there is also an aim with the BPAL regimen, which is bedaquiline, pretominid, linezolid, and delaminid, where the aim is that you can actually complete, if you can actually finish an MDR TB treatment in 6 months to 1 year. So with far lesser disruptions to your life. That is
Right.
the whole game. So
Right.
bedaquiline was there. And it has been around for a while now, and we could see that it was told, a lot of physicians, a lot of top physicians were speaking about it, and a common concern was raised that it is very expensive. It was almost 65 to 70,000 for a 6 month course. Not at all cheap for anyone, especially in a country like India, or any of
Right.
the very only a certain sort of a strata of the society will be able to afford in that case.
Mm-hmm.
A powerful medicine like bedaquiline, whereas the need for bedaquiline is actually among people, amongst the lower income and strata of the society, where TB is actually a much bigger problem over there. So I think there was this common concern that the bedaquiline is expensive,
Mm-hmm.
and the fact that and the fact that the Johnson and Johnson's patent was expiring. Every medicine, they have a 20-year patent period. The patent was expiring in 2023, that is last year. So they had filed for a secondary patent, which is what
Mm-hmm.
we had challenged. A
Right.
4 year extension is what we had challenged. Because
Mm-hmm.
personally, if you ask me, I completely agree that every pharmaceutical giant needs an incentive to produce drugs at the end of the day. And like I
Right.
said, it is their credit that they did put their money into getting bedaquiline out, and
True.
with public funding. So
Mm-hmm.
definitely that is there. But the 20-year patent period, a lot of researchers, a lot of scientists, whether it is India, whether it is abroad, whether it is MSF, whether they were health economists from the University of Liverpool, a bunch of research was coming out that bedaquiline can be produced at a much cheaper cost if
Mm-hmm.
a more competition enters into the market. So
Right.
it's some economics that economies of scale can bring down the price. So,
Right.
so we felt that this 4 year extension was
Mm-hmm.
me- Medicine Sans Frontier, that is Doctors Without Borders, MSF. They had reached out to me that this 4 year, they have put a secondary application for extending the patent, and they explained to me. I read up on my own what was it. I spoke to a couple of big infectious disease experts in Mumbai, from
Mm-hmm.
Hinduja, from a bunch of other places. I spoke to them. I wanted to understand what is the current landscape in terms of how important is bedaquiline, what was it. So I did my own set of research before I became a sort of a face and a partner to this petition
Yeah.
for challenging the secondary patent. And then, of course, we challenged it on the grounds that there is no They were trying Johnson and Johnson. I think this is a very common tactic, I believe, that is used by several pharmaceutical companies, which is called as evergreening,
Yes.
which is not allowed in the as per the Indian patent law. So we
Right.
challenged them on the grounds that this could qualify as evergreening. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
uh, but their extension of the patent period from 20 years
Mm-hmm.
at 4 years. This could qualify as evergreening, and that is where we challenged. And definitely, we won the case last year. It was, of course, a very significant moment
Yeah.
for the public health fraternity. It was a lot of people had appreciated the verdict. India
Mm-hmm.
is of course seen as the pharmacy of the world,
Yeah.
where immediately you know that uh, uh, you can have generic manufacturers enter into the market. So we
Yes.
didn't really understand. If I have to say, when we were filing this, we didn't understand what could be the scale of impact that could happen. But
Mm.
yes, it did. It's only when the verdict started coming out, and after that, when we saw the things unravel one by
Mm.
one, is we saw, for example, now there's a big lung conference that is going on, the Union Conference on Lung Health, that is going on in Bali right now. And there, someone, I didn't go for it, but someone told me that there was a discussion around this patent, the patent opposition that we won, and the fact that the UN's global drug facility (GDF), uh, the price at which they have procured bedaquiline today is half of what the price was, because at least two or three generic manufacturers have come in, including Lupin, McLeod's. They have all
Okay.
come in, and they have produced bedaquiline at a significantly lower price. So
Mm.
definitely, uh, it is also the government, because the TB is still a very persistent problem, and in
Mm.
India, TB medicines are provided for free by the government's TB program. So
Right.
naturally, even for them, the cost of acquiring these kind of medicines will also fall significantly for them, thereby helping helping improve access to a lot of patients. Because
Right.
for a very long time, you had couple of entry barriers that were in place
Mm.
for accessing bedaquiline, even though time and again it was known that it was an effective medicine. But
Right.
I think those barriers have also come down now, and I can see that today, thankfully, compared to what it was 4 years back or 5 years back, I'm a part of, say, a couple of these WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups that have a lot of current AMR patients or TB patients over there. Yeah, yeah, it's like bedaquiline is like, it's commonly used. It's like, yeah, हम bedaquiline ले रहे हैं. It was unthinkable for me a couple of years back, where
Is it?
it was not. I could have never thought that I would actually see a day where possibly the today's people who are taking them would not even realize that it was such a big struggle to get through the fact that they're getting bedaquiline so easily today.
That's incredible. What an incredible story, and I mean, really, more power to you and the team behind this advocacy and petition. And I think it's important that patient spearhead. I think it becomes even more powerful when patients, those with lived experience, spearhead such advocacy efforts. Um, but I wanted to also touch upon your more grassroots or rather more, work, that advocacy or rather engagement work you took up through Bolo Didi, and other survivor networks. So maybe can you talk a bit about such advocacy groups or such patient support groups that exist in India for TB patients or those with drug resistant infections, and also why do we see such few patient groups in India compared to, say, global north? Or even if you see them, I think you would I don't know if I'm right in saying that they seem more empowered in global north than they seem in global south. So why is that? I mean, why do you think? I think I have some understanding of why that might be, but I would really like you to maybe bell the cat on.
Yes, I think they are kind of survivor networks. It is still a very growing phenomenon.
Mm,
It is also tied to, for example, how much patronage they get from various stakeholders, whether it is international organizations, whether it is governments, whether it is large civil society organizations.
right.
They also the organizations like these, they also need patronage in terms of patronage in terms of, say, giving them visibility in their events. So I think all of that plays a role in making these survivor networks more thriving.
Right.
India, at least in the TB space, there are networks that are operated by, say, by an organization called Reach, which is a
Mhm,
Chennai based organization. They have their survivor networks in a number of states. So I think that they are the survivor networks, I think, are growing. I'm definitely seeing that there are more people who are ready to come out and speak, and it's naturally it's always welcome. There
mhm,
is also, of course, it's not there's also about, if I have to say very practically, from a patient's or from a survivor's perspective, it is
mhm,
also because uh, you need to devote significant time, and you need to devote significant mental bandwidth to actually study and learn about the disease, and to actually be ready to really go out there and sort of speak fearlessly about it. So I think
mhm,
that is also, it can also get a little challenging, I feel,
mhm.
for diseases which continue to be stigmatized.
Mm,
You know,
yes.
a couple of diseases. So, for example, if I see today in cancer, for example, it is thankfully and gladly there are. It is common today for people to come out and share their diagnosis more openly,
Right.
and still and thankfully the lens is uh, gradually it is shifting towards a more empathetic lens for the patients. We see whether celebrities talk about it, we see politicians, we see people who are now okay with sharing their cancer diagnosis, or breast cancer, or women talking about it, uh, uh,
Mm,
with a little bit more openness compared to what it was, say, many years back. I think that openness has come because they also realize that society is also getting less
mm,
and less judgmental towards cancer now. So
right.
I think that needs to happen for a lot of these diseases as well,
Very
because
true. Very true.
naturally for even for, say, TB, there's obviously a patient will have to deal, whether it is TB, whether it is other AMR infections. A person could be not very open to sharing it because they
Mm,
would feel that they would get asked a lot of questions about, oh, how did you get the disease? What is
mm,
how what exactly happened to you? How did you, why did you not do something to avert it? So
mm,
questions like this, no one really has an answer to. Or it could, or rather than engaging in a constructive way, if
mm,
if you feel that the approach is to probe a person and find out, think that is there, rather than looking at it from a more empathetic lens. I mean, you get the difference, right? Like,
absolutely.
compared to, so I think that difference, from what we are seeing in other diseases,
Mm,
whether it is cancer, whether it is, say, any person gets a stroke, for example.
mm,
Even some of them, people have been open to say, Shushmita Sen spoke, for example,
mm,
the
mm,
fact that she had a stroke,
right.
that someone as fit as her, for example, someone, people who are, who may seem very fit, who are doing their exercise routine and still they get a stroke. So I think
Mm,
it was not like, people pounced on her immediately as to, oh
mm,
wow, how to get it. But that we are still not there for some of these diseases, like some of the other infectious diseases, I think. So I think that is one aspect.
Mm.
Definitely patronage in terms of more visibility from multilateral organizations, in terms of, say, seat at the policy making table. But I
Right.
also feel that at the end of the day, I think, honestly, I think, even though more and more survivors are coming out and talking,
Mm.
I think now, uh, I understand that the problems persist in terms of stigma, in terms of not getting the right amount of patronage or much more visibility. But
Mm.
I also feel that, ultimately, I do feel that it's important that in today's day and age, when we have social media, I
Mm.
think survivors, it's more, if they come out and speak, I think the stigma will start going down slowly. The conversation will start getting normalized. So I do think that it's important that more people come out and speak about it. I remember initially when I would do, when I had very first, I had gotten involved into I got involved into advocacy in 2017. It was not something that I had planned or pre-planned. I didn't even know the word advocacy, what it meant. So
Mm.
I just felt that I went through something that was incredibly difficult, that I
Mm.
lost a lot of years of my life. But
Mm.
I felt like if there's a way in which I could uh, sort of maybe see to it that it could be averted for a lot of other people. That was my intention at that point of time. And I
Mm.
remember when I would go and meet people in in several other stakeholders, I would realize that they didn't even know that a loss of hearing persists, for because of TB.
Mm.
uh, so I would see a lot of lack of awareness about the fact that TB can actually lead to loss of hearing. A lot of people were shocked about it. Oh, how can this even happen? We haven't even heard of it.
The
The TB is,
treatment, you mean? The TB
yeah,
treatment. Ah, yeah.
and
Right.
to loss of hearing is a
Right.
connection no one knew about it.
Mm.
People were like, no, we didn't know about it. TB of all the diseases can lead to loss of hearing. I said, yes, TB. Even I didn't know about it. But
Imagine.
it's there.
Yeah.
But it's important that more and more people, I believe, come and talk, and that is when I think we'll start breaking the glass ceiling.
Sure. I mean, I think I completely agree with you. And I think I just want to change, I think, the tone of this conversation a little bit because I can't help but ask you about your interest in Bharatnatyam dance. You also give credit to Bharatnatyam as something that really kept you going during your hard times. So
Yeah.
maybe tell us a bit about your experience with arts in helping you cope with something so challenging. And also, do you see? And I ask you this because at my my organization Superheroes Against Superbugs, we use a lot of arts because we realize we need to tell stories, we need to humanize AMR, so we need to use arts to be able to do that. Or arts rather is a really good tool to do that. So maybe tell us a bit about your your how art helped you, how how it helped you cope with this challenge better.
Yes, I'm a Bharatanatyam dancer.
Mhm.
The I think I took up dancing at a very young age. I was 7 years. I'm a South Indian. It is very natural in South Indian families that you put into Carnatic music or Bharatanatyam dancing. So it started purely as that, but eventually it is something that I really love. I realized that dancing is something that I really enjoy, and it is second nature to me.
Mhm.
Whether it's Bharatnatyam, whether it is Bollywood, whether it is anything, just dancing just gets me going.
Mhm.
And then and I really realized the importance when I actually fell sick with TB.
Mhm.
Because after I lost my hearing, the one of my immediate realizations was that I think I will no longer be able to dance because I cannot hear to the music. You know,
Mm.
and I'm talking to you, of course, today because I wear cochlear implants.
Right.
I got cochlear implantation done almost 5 years after I had lost my hearing. So I lost my hearing in 2013. I got my cochlear implants done in 2018.
Okay.
2018, 2019, around that time. So it took about a good 5, 6 years when I had no implants, I had nothing. I would
Mm.
purely communicate with sign, lip reading, sign language, and things like that. So I think that immediate realization that okay, dance is something that is no longer a part of it could no longer be a part of my
Mm.
life was incredibly shocking to me
Mm.
because I realized that we take a lot of these things for granted. You know, dance is something I took it for. I say it is something that I'm passionate. I enjoy. I took it for granted. I felt, and then I suddenly realized that it is something I may not be able to do because of this sudden loss of hearing. So I think that is when that was the moment when I realized that it is a passion that I truly enjoy, and the fact that I could not do it was incredibly disheartening. But I read up after that. Was told that no, there are people who
Mm.
have lost their hearing, and they also have done they also have done dancing
Mm.
despite their loss of hearing. So dance I realized was an incredibly important part of my life. I was told that even though you cannot hear, I can take up dancing. It was my dance teacher who told me. I read up on the internet that deaf dancers exist. They basically convert their music into numbers. So Saregama Padanisa could be converted into 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4 5, and I would actually memorize the numbers, and I gave performances. So dance was something that came as a lifesaver more than anything else. It actually gave me a confidence booster that I'm actually worth something. You know, you need that when you are at the extreme depths, you know, when you are really at the lowest point in your life, you need some kind of a booster, that you need some kind of a confidence booster. And I think dance really proved that for me at that stage. And and it really helped me. I gave performances even though I could not listen to music. And then after that, I also gave and I realized that, like, you know, going back to your broader point, art is an incredible thing, I think, to be
Mm.
accommodated, especially when you're dealing with terminal illnesses, chronic illnesses. A lot of the AMR diseases, they
Mm.
are chronic in nature because your treatment period definitely extends more than a year,
Right.
and the diseases are chronic in nature. You need some kind of you need some kind of a hope. You need some kind of a hope to latch on to, and
Mm.
art can be that. I believe art can, if it's not for dancing, I think even drawing. I have
Yeah.
seen people. I've also know that, for example, any kind of, whether it is drawing, whether it is writing, all of
Mm.
that can be bracketed as art. Whether you write a poetry manifesting your pain, or even your resilience, uh, or even draw what you see. For example, if you are, say, admitted in an hospital, if you have a long hospital duration, what you see around you, if you just draw it, the immediate feeling is that it's very cathartic in nature, I believe. So
Mm.
art can be a brilliant form of catharsis, and
Especially.
especially for a lot of terminal and chronic illnesses. So
Mm.
definitely, I am a big supporter of art therapy when it comes to dealing with illnesses. It's very important, I think.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely right. And I think Nandita, I think we've touched so much in, I would say, in such a short time, given just how long your battle with MDR was, but you've given us such a wonderful glimpse into the science, the health aspects of this issue, the social aspects of this issue, and it's been really incredible listening to you. And so, as we wrap up, I would really like to hear your how overcoming TB twice, all the challenges that came with it, how did that shape your personal philosophy and your approach to life? How has that, changed, and what motivates you? What keeps you going these days?
Uh, I think it's interesting because say a disease can. There are two ways. It can either really pull you down, which did happen to me.
Mhm.
But also after that, it's important that you pick yourself up
Mhm.
and yeah, eh, talking very practically, to be very honest, only you can do it for yourself. With even with the best of support system in place,
Mhm.
ultimately it boils down to you taking that one action
Mhm.
to come out of your present situation. No disease or no dealing with no disease is an all positive experience. I would never say that, I don't think I will ever say that, it's a disease like this. It's so important I went through this that I became stronger. No, I don't think. I mean, I don't think I would ever say that.
Right.
But it showed to me that there is a resilience in me that was probably left untapped, and it just showed up at this stage in my life.
Mhm.
It teach me important lessons in I think I grew up very faster for my age, I felt.
Mhm.
I think that was an inevitable fallout of dealing with the disease, is that you grow up very faster for your age. You see things around you, whether you see things very early on in life. I believe,
Mhm.
whether it is physically, whether it is financially,
Mhm.
very important. I think financially also we saw a lot of difficult times very early
Yes.
on because of dealing with this. So I
Mhm.
think that all of that, I think really, I felt that it gave me a lot more strength to deal with a lot more future, to look at the future with a more uh, to look at the future with a more hopeful sense,
Mhm.
that okay, I have overcome really the worst, so there is nothing that can now break me, hopefully.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think
Yeah.
I think that is one takeaway, and also the fact that it also gave me that thinking that I think it gave me that, the big systems thinking, which is so common. It is very told in it is a part of all management philosophies. I realize now that you have to think big, you have to think in a very system centric
Mhm.
approach.
Mhm.
I needed no management lessons for all these.
So
I just
interesting. Yeah.
it, it just seeing with it firsthand, just seeing what others I saw, whether it is at hospitals, whether it is with talking to others, whether it is through my work. I think all of that itself has put that thought in me that it's important to think on a much uh, bigger scale. So, like, that is why I think that even with TB, I think it's important that we don't see TB in a very isolated way. It's time we look at AMR as a whole, because everything is everything that happens in TB plays out across. I have seen across all eh, 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 diseases that are in the AMR sphere. So
Right.
we need
Right.
to really, AMR is a very important issue that thankfully I think people are waking up to. I
Mhm.
see a lot of global collaborations happening now, global AMR R&D hub. There
Mhm.
is ARDP, where the Indian government has also been sort of trying to get become members of some of these AMR alliances. I see all of them as a very positive move, but definitely we need some of these global alliances in diagnostics, in drugs, in the AMR sphere as a whole. And also India needs to, personally, I think we need to start, we are there, but we need to start really investing more in paying attention to AMRs, I think.
I think it's a fantastic last message to end on. I think on especially this week and whole year around. But Nandita, this has been such an inspiring, informational, thought-provoking conversation. Thank you so much on behalf of both Nivarana and Superheroes Against Superbugs. I think your voice adds so much more depth to the ongoing AMR discourse. And it's really perspectives like yours, of patients like yours, that drive real change. And we've seen this in the bedaquiline was a really good example. So thank you so much for taking the time to share your experiences, and I'm sure our audience will walk away inspired and better informed about this global health challenge, and hope we can all continue to work towards addressing this really big issue together and collectively. So thanks again, and hope to I'm just gonna stop recording. I realized how do I stop?